Do you remember the exact moment that a hobby or, a passion of yours officially turned into a job?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a very specific feeling.
Right, because it is this incredibly bittersweet milestone for you. On the one hand, you are finally getting paid to do something you're genuinely good at.
Something you actually chose to do.
Exactly. But then on the other hand, almost instantly, there's this heavy, invisible weight.
The pressure.
Yeah, the deadlines, client expectations, just the general professional grind kind of settles over the whole thing. The thing you used to do to escape work suddenly becomes the work.
It is a profoundly common trajectory, especially if you look at tech and creative fields. The pure joy of discovery just gets replaced by this necessity of optimization.
Right.
You stop asking yourself, what happens if I try this weird approach?
Yeah.
And you start asking, how fast can I deliver this feature so we can just close the sprint?
Yeah.
It fundamentally changes your relationship with your own skills.
Yeah.
The sandbox basically becomes an assembly line.
And that very specific, very universal feeling is exactly what we're getting into today. So, welcome back to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we are looking at a source that, on its surface, it sounds like the most niche, hyper-technical document imaginable.
It really does.
We're looking at a blog post. It's dated February 26th, 2026, from a website called qianmen.org. The author is Qian Meng, and the post is titled, "And Brace Yourself for This One, Notes on Haskell Programming, Part 68, Why I Switched to simpleVersioner to Handle Version Flag."
I can already hear you, the listener, looking at your player and wondering why on earth we are dedicating a deep dive to a minor software update.
A minor update about a command line version flag, no less.
Right. It sounds like reading a changelog for a toaster.
It totally sounds like that.
Oh.
But trust me, stick with us. Okay, let's unpack this. Because our mission today is to explore how a tiny, seemingly mundane change in a software code base unexpectedly reveals a really profound meditation on the daily grind.
And the loss of innocence in our careers.
Yes, and the secret to actually getting that innocence back. So, Qian Meng starts the post by talking about a pet project he's building.
In Haskell.
In Haskell, yeah. And he's utilizing a library called optparse-applicative to handle his command line interface.
Right. And optparse-applicative is a fantastic, incredibly robust library in the Haskell ecosystem. It's used for parsing command line options.
What?
But like many robust tools, if you want to do something seemingly simple, like just outputting the version number of your app, it can sometimes require writing a pretty frustrating amount of boilerplate code.
You have to define the parser, you have to handle the info modifier, maybe set up a helper switch.
Exactly. It can feel a bit heavy for what is usually a weekend pet project.
So he decides to refactor. He switches his code to use a specific, highly targeted function called simpleVersioner. But here's where I want to push back a little, because making this switch comes with a very specific trade-off.
A trade-off that a lot of developers would actually hate.
Hate. Absolutely despise. You're talking about the loss of the short flag?
I am. By adopting simpleVersioner, he explicitly loses the ability to use the short form -v flag.
-v, just one letter.
Yeah. He is restricted to only the long form, which is -dact version spelled out entirely.
Now, most developers I know would fight tooth and nail to keep their short flags. Users expect a quick one-letter shortcut. It's muscle memory.
It is.
So why kneecap your own CLI by giving that up? It seems like a downgrade just to save a few lines of code.
It does seem counterintuitive. If you are only looking at the immediate user experience, that is. But this is where the aesthetic and architectural preferences of a solo developer really come into play.
Because for Qian Meng, the benefit of the switch is huge.
Massive. He points out that getting rid of that custom parser boilerplate drastically cleans up his code base. Specifically, it cleans things up inside his where block.
And for those of you listening who might live in Python or Rustland and aren't writing Haskell every day, a where block is just an incredibly elegant way to declare local bindings at the end of a function.
Right, it allows you to keep your main logic front and center.
Pushing the implementation details to the bottom. So having a clean, readable where block is a big deal for the aesthetics of the code.
Precisely. Readability, especially when you are programming just for yourself in your spare time, is paramount. You don't want to come back to your pet project after 2 weeks and have to wade through 20 lines of parser configurations just to find your core logic.
Nobody wants that.
What's fascinating here is the broader design philosophy he applies to this tiny decision about the -v flag. It's not just about writing less code today. It is about protecting the future architecture of his application.
Because he realizes he needs to save that letter V for something else entirely.
Exactly. He points out that the letter V is traditionally used in console apps to indicate verbosity.
How much output the program actually spits back at you.
Right. If something breaks, you might run the app with -v to get a little extra error information, or -vv to get more.
Or dash dash VVV if you want a complete data dump of everything happening behind the scenes.
Yes. So by forcing the version command to use the long-form -- version, he explicitly frees up that single letter V for those future verbosity features. He's preserving his options.
As he writes in the post, as your console app grows, you'll eventually notice that you're running out of short-form alphabets for new features. It's better to be stingy with them early on.
Stingy with your alphabet. It is a brilliant way to frame command line design. You only have 26 lowercase letters and 26 uppercase letters. That is your entire real estate.
I was thinking about it like organizing a tiny studio apartment kitchen. Imagine you only have 26 little drawers for your tools.
Okay, I like that.
If you just shove your blender into the first drawer you open and your spatula into the second without thinking about how you actually cook, you aren't being strategic. Eventually, you will run out of space and nothing makes sense.
It becomes a mess.
Right. So the author is looking at his 26 drawers and saying, no, I am not putting the version string in the V drawer. That drawer needs to be saved for something much more foundational down the line.
It is the hallmark of an experienced systems thinker, someone who has felt the pain of bad early decisions years down the line, and someone who knows that reversing a CLI flag once users rely on it is an absolute nightmare.
It breaks everything.
It does. And that deep architectural context is absolutely crucial for understanding who this author actually is.
Yes, because this hyper-strategic thinking about the letter V made me wonder who actually wrote this post. And looking at the rest of qianmeng.org is a wild ride.
It really is an adventure.
To truly understand the weight of this single blog post from February 2026, you have to zoom out and look at the entire ecosystem he has built. In his About section, he describes himself simply as an old software plumber, night-long, tinkering with free libre and open-source software, or FLUS.
The term plumber is incredibly telling here. A software plumber doesn't build the flashy user interface that gets venture capital funding. They build the hidden infrastructure that makes the system work.
They connect the pipes.
They route the data. They fix the silent leaks. It is unglamorous, highly foundational work. And when you look at the sheer volume of his output as a plumber, the word relentless feels like a massive understatement.
Let's talk about that output, because the numbers are staggering. He has been blogging on this site since July 2011, but his output actually increases over time in a way that requires a level of discipline most of us simply do not possess.
Let's hear the numbers.
In the year 2022, he published 730 posts. In 2023, 730 posts. In 2024, 732 posts. In 2025, another 730 posts.
Just to put that in perspective for you listening, that is exactly 2 blog posts every single day, year in, year out, through holidays, through sickness, through busy weeks at his day job.
It's unbelievable.
That is a staggering archive of continuous learning.
And my first thought was, okay, maybe these are just low-effort auto-generated updates. Maybe he's just dumping commit logs to inflate the numbers.
Right, a script just pulling from GitHub.
Exactly. But they aren't. He is meticulously documenting his daily tinkering, his refactoring, and his problem solving, just like the Haskell post we were looking at.
This is someone who is fundamentally driven by the process of learning, and more importantly, sharing that learning openly. He isn't gatekeeping his knowledge.
Not at all.
And it is not just notes on Haskell. If you look at the sidebars and the tags on his website, you see the map of a true Renaissance mind. He absolutely refuses to specialize to the point of tunnel vision.
You think this is just a coding blog? Let me read you some of these actual titles from February 2026 alone. Right alongside Notes on Haskell Programming Part 68, we have Notes on Gardening Part 821, Why Your Mint is Not Growing.
Part 821.
Yes. And we have Part 816, Discovering Root Beer Plant.
He is applying the exact same rigorous analytical observation he uses for functional programming to the natural world. He is literally debugging his garden.
And it goes on. Notes on Fish Keeping Part 202, Will Guppies Eat Algae? And Part 190, Why Discus Shape Matters. Then he pivots back to tech with Notes on Networking Part 10, Installing Wi-Fi 7.
The variety is incredible.
And we're just scratching the surface here. His project list includes deep dives into Elixir, Erlang, Python, AI, typesetting, but then also meditation, dieting, home improvement, guitar, and photography.
It's an incredible breadth of curiosity. He is maintaining a beginner's enthusiasm across a multitude of totally disparate disciplines. And importantly, he's doing this entirely in the spirit of the open source movement.
He has a whole do support section on his site where he actively champions the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the Free Software Foundation, the Tor Project, and Wikipedia.
Those organizations are the foundational pillars of the open web. They represent the core belief that knowledge, tools, and privacy should be freely accessible to everyone.
Not locked behind corporate walled gardens.
It's exactly, or monetized by tech monopolies. By aligning himself with these groups, and by dedicating his nights to Flossus projects, Qian Meng is making a very clear statement about his personal values.
He is not writing 730 posts a year to get a promotion at work.
No, he is not doing it to build a startup or become a tech influencer on social media. He's doing it for the collective good, without asking for any glory or compensation.
And that lack of glory, that pure internal motivation, brings us right back to the text of the Haskell post. Here's where it gets really interesting. After he finishes explaining why he gave up the -v flag and how beautiful his where block looks now, he just pauses the technical explanation entirely.
It's a real shift in tone.
It is, out of nowhere in this dry, technical log, he writes. On a side note, isn't this what makes programming so fun and beautiful?
It is a striking moment of vulnerability in what is otherwise a standard piece of technical documentation. He completely drops the analytical framing and asks a deeply emotional question.
He's looking at a few lines of refactored code and feeling genuine joy.
Right. He realizes he made it slightly more elegant, and he's genuinely seeing beauty in it.
He goes on to elaborate on that feeling. He writes, "Still remember this beginner's mind we had when we first started falling in love with programming in our youth. It's not about the glory, but simply for the sake of the craft and fun of the programming itself. It's that pure curiosity state where you aren't chasing fame or deadline. Instead, you're finding quiet satisfaction in a cleaner abstraction."
Quiet satisfaction in a cleaner abstraction. That is a poet's way of describing software engineering.
It really is.
He is explicitly defining the beginner's mind. That is a concept rooted in Zen Buddhism, known as Shoshin. It refers to having an attitude of complete openness, eagerness, and a lack of preconceptions when studying a subject, even if you are at an advanced level.
You drop the ego.
Exactly. When you are a true beginner, you aren't stressed about optimizing your output for the market. You are just amazed that you can make the computer say, "Hello, world, you are playing."
You are playing and you are exploring just to see what happens. But then, right after that beautiful thought, he delivers the gut punch.
The reality check.
After reminiscing about that pure state of youth and discovery, he writes two very short sentences. "Then you grow up and find that you have to work for your bread and butter. The art often takes a backseat to the daily grind."
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is the universal tension we discussed at the very beginning of this deep dive. The bread and butter is survival. It is the mortgage, the rent, the groceries, the health care.
The necessities.
And when your passion becomes the tool for your survival, the parameters change entirely.
The environment becomes hostile to the art.
Precisely. You no longer have the luxury of spending 4 hours on a Friday night debating the philosophical purity of a command line version flag, because your product manager needs the feature shipped by Monday morning so the sales team can demo it. The code is no longer a canvas. It is just a lever you pull to generate business value, and that crushes the beginner's mind. It forces you into the expert's mind, which is closed, rushed, and highly optimized for survival.
And this resonates with everyone, right? Think about your own week listening to this, whether you are writing code or managing a team or doing graphic design.
It applies to any field.
Exactly. Maybe you love baking, so you opened a bakery, and now you spend 80% of your time managing inventory spreadsheets and dealing with broken ovens.
You're not baking anymore.
No, or maybe you loved writing, so you became a copywriter. And now you spend your days arguing with a client over the placement of a comma in a targeted ad. The daily grind demands efficiency, and efficiency is the enemy of playful curiosity.
Which is exactly why Qian Meng's conclusion is so vital. He isn't just complaining about the grind. He is offering a solution. He writes, "This is why these small moments of refactoring a pet project feel so fulfilling." He is providing us with the antidote.
So, what does this all mean? We started this deep dive looking at a highly specific, totally obscure choice about a Haskell -- version flag using simpleVersioner.
A tiny technical detail.
But as we pulled back the layers, we saw a decade-and-a-half long archive of gardening, fish keeping, and open source advocacy. And ultimately, we uncovered a really touching, almost melancholy reminder to aggressively protect our passion from our professions.
The core takeaway here is the absolute necessity of the pet project.
Hmm.
Having something you work on where there are no deadlines, no clients, and no fame on the line isn't just a cute weekend hobby.
It's vital.
It is a fundamental psychological tool required to prevent burnout in your day job. It is a sandbox where you control all the variables, where you can afford to be stingy with your alphabet, where you can spend 3 days refactoring a single function just because it looks prettier.
It allows you to visit that beginner's mind and remind yourself why you fell in love with your field in the first place. Kian Meng uses his Haskell project not as a path to a monetizable product, but as a retreat,
A sanctuary.
a sanctuary from the bread and butter, a place where you can find quiet satisfaction in a cleaner abstraction, whatever that abstraction might be for you.
This raises an important question, though, and it is something I want you to consider after we wrap up here today. We looked at Kian Meng's incredibly diverse interests earlier.
The gardening, the fish keeping.
Yes. We saw him meticulously documenting the incredibly strict, mathematical, strongly typed syntax of Haskell, right next to the wild, messy, unpredictable nature of propagating Brazilian spinach, or trying to balance the algae bloom in a fish tank.
Right, he is constantly bouncing from the most controlled environment possible, a compiler, to the least controlled environment possible, nature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, could it be that to truly preserve the beginner's mind in our primary area of expertise, it isn't enough to just have a pet project in that same field?
What do you mean?
Well, Kian Meng codes for his day job and codes for his pet project. But maybe we must actively force ourselves to be absolute beginners in wildly different, totally unrelated disciplines to keep that muscle alive.
That is a fascinating lens, that the fish keeping and the gardening actually make him a better, or at least a more fulfilled, software plumber?
The humility required to learn something entirely new, like why your mint is dying or how a Wi-Fi 7 protocol actually works when you've never set one up, prevents the calcification of the expert mind.
It keeps you grounded.
It forces you to remember what it feels like to not know the answers. And when you carry that humility back to your primary job, you are more open to new solutions. You are less rigid.
You bring the Shoshin back to the bread and butter.
Exactly. The diverse hobbies protect the core passion.
That is something to really sit with the next time you feel completely crushed by the daily grind. Maybe don't try to solve your professional burnout by working harder at your job, or even by starting a side hustle in the exact same field.
It's a break from the screen.
Maybe you need to go try to grow a root beer plant. Put yourself in a position where you know absolutely nothing. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take a look at your own tiny kitchen of skills, figure out where you are being a little too rigid with your alphabet, and go find your own cleaner abstraction today. We'll catch you next time.